Most people look outside in February, see cold weather, and assume gardening hasn't started yet. But that belief alone is why many gardeners fall behind every single year. February is not the end of winter for gardeners. It's the beginning of advantage. And if you live anywhere in the United States, there are crops you should already be planting right now. Some outdoors, some indoors, that will give you earlier harvests, stronger plants, and a much longer growing season. In this video, I'm going to walk you slowly and clearly through 17 crops you can plant in February based on how U.S. weather actually behaves, not gardening myths. Whether you live in the South, the Midwest, the Northeast, or the West Coast, you'll leave this video knowing exactly what you can start now and why it works. Before we talk about crops, talk honestly about February weather in the United States, because February does not look the same everywhere. In the southern states, places like Texas, Georgia, Alabama, parts of California, and the Carolinas, February often brings mild days, workable soil, and occasional cold nights. In much of the Midwest and Northeast, February is still cold, with frozen ground, snow, or heavy frost. And in northern regions, February is usually deep winter. This is exactly why February planting is misunderstood. February is not about planting everything outside. February is about starting the right crops in the right way, so they're ready when the weather allows. Some crops love cold soil, some crops don't mind frost, and some crops must be started indoors now, or they'll never reach full size before summer ends. But if you've heard gardeners talk about zones, they're usually referring to USDA hardiness zones. Without getting technical, here's a simple way to think about it. In zones 8 to 10, many crops can be planted outdoors in February in zones 6 to 7. Cold-tolerant crops outdoors, others indoors. In zones 3 to 5, mostly indoor starts, cold crops later. In zones 1 to 2, indoor seed starting only. No matter your zone, February still matters, because what you do now affects your entire season. Crop number 1. Spinach. Let's start with spinach, because spinach is one of the most misunderstood crops in home gardening. Most people associate spinach with spring or even summer planting, but that's actually when spinach struggles the most. Spinach is a cold season crop. It evolved to grow in cool temperatures, short days, and moist soil. In much of the United States, February conditions are closer to spinach's natural environment than April or May. In the southern U.S., February soil temperatures often hover between 45 and 55 degrees Fahrenheit, which is perfect for spinach germination. In northern states, even if the ground is frozen, February is still the ideal time to start spinach indoors, so it's ready the moment the soil becomes workable. Spinach seeds should be planted about ½ inch deep. Use loose, well-draining soil. Spinach hates compacted ground. Indoors, spinach doesn't need strong heat. In fact, too much warmth reduces germination. One of the biggest mistakes gardeners make is planting spinach when daytime temperatures are already warm. This causes bolting, where the plant sends up a flower stalk instead of producing leaves. Spinach also works beautifully as an early companion plant. It shades the soil, retains moisture, and can be harvested before larger plants need the space. By planting spinach in February, you're not just growing food, you're preparing your garden ecosystem. Crop number 2. Kale. Now let's talk about kale, one of the most forgiving vegetables you can grow, especially for beginners. Kale doesn't demand perfection. It tolerates cold, survives frost, and continues producing even when conditions aren't ideal. In much of the U.S., February temperatures are actually perfect for establishing strong kale plants. Cool weather encourages slow, sturdy growth, which leads to better leaf texture and flavor. In warmer zones, kale can be planted outdoors in February as soon as the soil can be worked. In colder zones, February is the ideal time to start kale indoors, so it's ready to transplant early spring. Kale seeds should be planted about 1/4 to ½ an inch deep. They germinate well in cool soil, so there's no need for excessive warmth. When starting kale indoors, provide good light early. Leggy seedlings lead to weaker plants later. A common mistake with kale is overcrowding. Kale plants need space to develop strong stems and full leaves. Kale becomes sweeter after light frost. This is why February started kale often tastes better than kale planted later in spring. Kale also continues producing for months if harvested correctly, making it one of the most efficient crops in a home garden. And now that we've covered two of the most cold-tolerant leafy greens, the next crop is one that surprises many gardeners because it actually prefers cold soil to warm. Crop number 3. Radishes. Now let's talk about radishes because radishes teach one of the most important lessons in gardening. Fast crops reward early timing. Radishes are often overlooked because they're small and quick. But that speed is exactly why February planting matters so much. Radishes are a cool season root crop. They grow best when soil temperatures are cool and days are short. In many parts of the U.S., February provides the perfect window, especially in the south and west coast, where radishes can be direct sown outdoors as soon as the soil is workable. In colder regions, radishes can still be started in protected spaces like cold frames or high tunnels. Radishes should almost always be direct sown. And they don't like transplanting because their roots develop quickly. Plant radish seeds about ½ inch deep, spacing them evenly. Loose soil is critical. Compacted soil leads to misshapen roots. Water gently but consistently. Radishes grow fast, and uneven moisture causes splitting. One of the biggest mistakes gardeners make is waiting too long to harvest radishes. If radishes stay in the ground too long, they become woody and bitter. Another mistake is planting radishes when temperatures are already warm. Heat stresses the plant and ruins root development. Radishes are excellent gap fillers. You can plant them between slower crops like carrots or cabbage. They also help loosen soil naturally, improving conditions for future plantings. By planting radishes in February, you get an early harvest and prepare your garden beds for what comes next. Crop number 4, lettuce. Next is lettuce, and lettuce is all about timing. Most people associate lettuce with warm spring days, but lettuce actually performs best when started early, under cool conditions. In southern states, February often allows direct sowing of lettuce outdoors. In cooler states, February is perfect for indoor starts or protected planting. Cool weather slows lettuce growth slightly, but it dramatically improves flavor and leaf quality. Lettuce seeds are very small and should be planted shallow, barely covered with soil. Indoors, use shallow trays with good drainage. Outdoors, keep the soil surface consistently moist until germination. Lettuce prefers cool temperatures and steady moisture, not heat. One of the most common mistakes with lettuce is overcrowding. Crowded lettuce produces weak, bitter leaves. Another mistake is planting lettuce too late, when warm temperatures cause bolting. Lettuce is perfect for cut-and-come-again harvesting. You don't need to pull the whole plant. Harvest outer leaves and let the center keep growing. By starting lettuce in February, you extend your harvest window and avoid the heat stress of late spring. Now that you've seen how early planting affects leafy greens and fast root crops, the next group of vegetables shows why February is so important for crops that need time. Crop number 5, peas. Now let's talk about peas, because peas are one of the clearest examples of why February planting gives gardeners an advantage. Many people wait until spring to plant peas. I'm thinking warmer weather helps them grow faster. But peas are actually a cool season crop. They prefer cold soil and mild temperatures. In large parts of the United States, February soil temperatures are ideal for peas, especially in the South, the Pacific Northwest, and coastal regions. In colder areas, peas can be planted as soon as the soil can be worked, even if light frost is still expected. Pea seedlings are tough. They can survive cold nights and even light snow once established. Peas are best planted directly into the soil. They don't like being transplanted because their roots are sensitive. Plant pea seeds about 1 inch deep, spacing them a few inches apart. Peas need support early. Even short varieties benefit from trellising, which improves airflow and makes harvesting easier. One of the biggest mistakes gardeners make is planting peas too late. When warm weather arrives, pea plants stop producing. Another mistake is skipping support structures. Without support, peas sprawl, rot, and produce less. Peas are nitrogen fixers. This means they improve soil health by adding nitrogen back into the ground. When pea plants finish producing, you can cut them at soil level and leave the roots behind to benefit future crops. Crop number 6. Beets. Next are beets, a crop that rewards patience and early planting. Beets are another cool season root crop that performs best when planted early, long before summer heat arrives. In warmer U.S. regions, February is an excellent time to direct sow beets outdoors. In colder regions, beets can be started in protected beds or indoors for later transplanting. And beets germinate best in cool soil, between 45 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Beet seeds are actually seed clusters, meaning each seed can produce multiple seedlings. Plant beets about half an inch deep in loose, well-drained soil. Once they sprout, thin seedlings early. Crowded beets stay small and poorly shaped. A common mistake is neglecting thinning. Beets need space to form healthy roots. Another mistake is inconsistent watering, which causes tough or woody beets. Beets offer 2 harvests in one plant. You can harvest young beet greens early while allowing roots to mature. Early planted beets develop deeper flavor and better texture than late-season plantings. Now that we've covered fast growers and nitrogen-boosting crops, the next vegetables are ones that quietly outperform when planted early, even though many gardeners overlook them. Crop number 7. Swiss chard. Now let's talk about Swiss chard, because Swiss chard quietly solves a problem many gardeners don't even realize they have. Most gardeners want something that grows reliably, doesn't panic in cold weather, and keeps producing without constant attention. Swiss chard does exactly that. Swiss chard is extremely tolerant of temperature swings. In many parts of the United States, February brings cold nights and mild days, and Swiss chard handles that better than most leafy greens. In warmer regions, Swiss chard can be direct sown outdoors in February. In colder regions, February is the perfect time to start Swiss chard indoors so it's ready to transplant early spring. Once established, Swiss chard survives light frost and continues growing when other plants slow down. Swiss chard seeds should be planted about half an inch deep in loose, fertile soil. Like beets, Swiss chard seeds are clusters, so thinning is important. If you don't thin early, plants compete and never reach full size. Indoors, provide good light early. Outdoors, keep the soil evenly moist during germination. A common mistake with Swiss chard is harvesting too aggressively early on. Young plants need time to build strength before heavy harvesting. Another mistake is treating Swiss chard like lettuce. Swiss chard prefers deeper soil and benefits from occasional feeding. Swiss chard is one of the longest producing leafy greens you can grow. When harvested properly, it can produce from early spring well into fall. Of February, started Swiss chard develops strong root systems, making it more resilient throughout the season. Crop number 8, turnips. Next are turnips, a crop that many gardeners underestimate. Turnips are often remembered as tough or bitter, but that reputation usually comes from turnips planted too late. Turnips are a cool season root crop that prefers the exact conditions February provides in much of the U.S. In southern and mild regions, turnips can be direct sown outdoors in February. In colder regions, they can be started in protected beds or cold frames. Cold soil encourages slow, steady root development, which leads to sweeter turnips. Turnip seeds should be planted about half an inch deep in loose, well-drained soil. Spacing matters. Crowded turnips stay small and become woody. Consistent moisture is key. Dry soil causes turnips to become tough. One of the biggest mistakes gardeners make is waiting until late spring to plant turnips. Heat ruins their texture and flavor. Another mistake is ignoring the greens. Turnip greens are edible, nutritious, and often better than the roots. Turnips give you 2 harvests in one plant. Greens first, roots later. February planted turnips mature before pests become a serious problem. And coming up next are 2 crops that many gardeners forget about, even though they thrive when planted early and deliver huge value later in the season. Crop number 9, collard greens. Now let's talk about collard greens, one of the toughest, most reliable vegetables you can grow in the United States. Collards are deeply rooted in southern gardening culture, but they're not limited to the South. What makes collards special is their ability to tolerate cold, recover from stress, and keep producing for months. Collards are a cool season crop that actually benefits from cold exposure. In much of the U.S., February provides the perfect environment for slow, sturdy growth. In warmer regions, collards can be direct sown outdoors in February. In colder regions, February is the ideal time to start collards indoors for early spring transplanting. Collards planted early develop thicker stems and deeper root systems, which helps them survive pests, heat, and drought later. Plant collard seeds about ½ inch deep in fertile, well-draining soil. If starting indoors, provide strong light early. Collards grow quickly and can become leggy without proper lighting. When transplanting outdoors, space plants generously, so crowded collards never reach their full potential. One common mistake is harvesting too late. Younger collard leaves are more tender and flavorful. Another mistake is waiting too long to plant. Late-planted collards struggle in summer heat. Collards are one of the longest-producing leafy greens in the garden. If harvested properly, a single plant can feed you for months. February-started collards are often the most productive plants in the entire garden. Crop number 10, Mache, corn salad. The next crop is one many gardeners haven't heard of. Mache, also called corn salad. Mache is one of the most cold-hardy leafy greens you can grow, and it thrives in conditions that stop other plants completely. Mache prefers cool temperatures and short days. In fact, it grows best when planted in late winter. In mild U.S. climates, a mache can be direct sown outdoors in February. In colder regions, it can be started indoors or in protected beds. Mache can survive frost and even light snow once established. Mache seeds are small and should be planted shallow, barely covered with soil. It prefers moist soil, but does not tolerate soggy conditions. Germination can be slow, so patience is important. The most common mistake gardeners make with mache is planting it too late. Warm weather causes mache to bolt quickly. Another mistake is neglecting spacing. Crowded mache stays small and weak. Mache has a mild, nutty flavor and is often considered a gourmet green. February planted mache matures slowly but delivers exceptional quality. At this point, you can probably see that February isn't a waiting month, it's a preparation month. The crops we've covered so far thrive in cool weather and reward gardeners who start early. But there's another group of crops that must be started in February, especially if you live in cooler parts of the U.S. These are the long-season vegetables that won't reach full size unless you give them a head start. In the next video, I'll walk you through exactly which crops those are, how to start them indoors, and how to avoid the most common mistakes people make this time of year. If you want a stronger harvest later, that next step matters. If this video helped you see February differently, take a second to like it. It helps this channel reach more gardeners who are trying to grow better food at home. And if you want simple, realistic planting guides that actually match real-world weather, consider subscribing to Daily Plant Life. I focus on timing, low-stress growing, and making gardening easier season after season. I'll see you in the next one.